Yeah.
We are live.
We're live. It's Senate Appropriations, Day 7. We are finishing with the budget adjustment act, but we will move into FY27, and we start out with our favorite agency.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chair. So for the record, Nick Kramer, Chief Operating Officer for the Agency of Administration, the aforementioned favorite agency. I will, as always, my goal, I was in here a lot about this time last year, telling you all we had a fairly sleepy budget, like nothing major to report. We're gonna try to outdo ourselves this year and get even sleepier. But I welcome, of course, questions from committee members. I'll start by a just general refresher because the Secretary's office budget, which is what I'm here to speak to today, it is a little idiosyncratic. You know, there's a couple oddities in the way we're structured.
This is a photo.
This is a new photo. Yeah. So before I launch, as always, I want to first give a shout out to our financial services division, who are incidentally part of this budget. But you're looking at what 60%, well, not 60% of them, but a big chunk of them are in the room with us today. This budget and all the other ones that have this beautiful photo on them were prepared by them, as they always do. I think they serve, there's at least 16 budgets that they're presenting. They also serve not just the internal to the Agency of Administration, but a lot of the boards and commissions that get stood up by this body and other sources. If they don't have a kind of centralized financial shop, they fall to FSD. So they do a lot of work, and I just always want to give a shout out to a team that works really, really hard this time of year to bring you all the stuff that I get to just talk about.
And how long have you been there, Nick?
Well, I've been in this role in the agency since last December, Mr. Chair. Before that, I worked in Department of Finance and Management, helping arrange the budget.
It seems like it really does more than it used to 10 years ago, or even before.
Yeah, so I think I was in here last year talking about that to some degree. We're kind of the catch-all for state government, right? We're a central agency located on the 5th floor, kind of principal aid to the governor in a lot of different ways. When often this body creates a new initiative or has some funding that they'd like to go out the door and it doesn't exactly fit in the existing agency, often it falls into the agency administration. I could talk at great length how busy we were this summer with a number of different initiatives, helped to facilitate a conversation around adult education and literacy, of which I've learned a lot, not a subject matter expert, but as a neutral facilitator, brought together a few different stakeholders in the space and have issued a couple of reports.
We thank you for that.
By this body. It was fascinating work, Senator.
It needed little eyes that were not traditional.
If we were to have somebody in on that, there wouldn't be, would it be still be AOE?
If you wanted to report on the report, Senator, it would probably be me again. I could have you come back and then I'd bring colleagues. AOE was part of the discussions. I'm sure the adult education and literacy providers would welcome the opportunity. We were just up in House Commerce the other day, giving the report, but certainly
Maybe it's sometime if the House doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah, we'll have us back in. So that a big lead. Our secretary's office is a massive staff of 4 people, myself, the deputy, and the secretary, and then we have an executive assistant. A big chunk of her time, Chrissy Gilhooly, familiar name for many folks, this summer was spent helping provide support to the redistricting task force. That was a big thing of work. I won't go on and on and on. We facilitated a conversation about grants improvement over the summer. That was sort of a result of legislative conversation. So there are a lot of things fall in the Secretary's office when they don't have a good place to live. But I guess diving into the budget, fiscal year 2027, governor's recommendation, let's flip a different way. A reminder that folks will recall there's 4 components.
I'll do it for you.
That's right. Great. Thank you guys. There's 4 components to the budget that I'm going to talk about today. Again, the agency of administration consists of DHR and tax and BGS and finance and management and all these other departments. They'll be in, of course, separately. So I'm focusing on the business unit that consists of the Secretary's Office, the Financial Services Division I just mentioned, the Office of Risk Management, which is also a huge team of 3 people, and the Office of Racial Equity, which has been a growing and important part of our work as an agency. In terms of structure, so that, like I mentioned, the Secretary's Office kind of proper, there's really 4 of us, me, the Secretary, the Deputy, and our Executive Assistant. There's also the Chief Performance Office, that's Justin Kenny, and his co-worker, Katie, who also sit within our structure. They're also up on the 5th floor. The Chief Prevention Officer, Monica Hutt, who works closely with the Governor's Office, but she's sort of embedded in our budget. And the State Recovery Office, Doug Lyman and his crew. Financial Services Division has 10 positions, all of which are funded by IDT, Interdepartmental Transfer. There's an acronym cheat sheet at the bottom of this slide for anyone who can be it. But those are sort of bill back services to other departments that they support. All the work that I just overviewed. Risk management focuses on exactly what it sounds like, kind of the state's portfolio of insurance and our liabilities. They manage 3 internal service funds that have to do with state insurances, and those are also kind of a bill back mechanism where each department you'll see in all the other budgets has a charge for workers' comp, general liability, and all other insurance. That's the WCGL and AOI. I'll talk about those funds in particular because they have some ups and downs. And then racial equity, Susanna Davis and her crew, and they have 6 positions this year, 3 of which are funded by the general fund. That's the Division of Justice Statistics, and then 3 of them are funded through the DHR Internal Service Fund. That's Susanna, 2 March folks. I will pause on that in case folks have any questions.
Are there any departments within the agency? No.
Departments within AOA? Yes, Senator. So finance and management, tax, BGS, DHR, libraries.
Okay, all that.
Those are all within agency administration. So they report up to the secretary.
Including all the other part like public service that doesn't have them.
Public service is a different kettle of fish, Senator. They're a freestanding part. They report directly to the government. So the ones I listed are pretty much in tax, libraries, DHR, BGS, finance and management.
I was just thinking of different, okay.
There used to be a lot more boards administration.
And then, yeah, there are a lot of freestanding boards that, again, the financial service division, like the labor relations board this year was a new customer that came and said, hey, we really don't have the capacity. We would like some additional financial capacity. Could be on the roster, and the financial services team picked them up and so helped prepare their budget and some basic financial.
In the old days, the governor's highway safety council was.
So just the last thing I would point out on this first slide, this pie chart gives kind of a sense of our overall funding makeup. We're about 1/3 general funded, about 1/3 ISF, internal service fund, and about 1/3 IDT. And the small sliver of special fund is our clean water funds. We, again, in the spirit of when things don't have a home, they land with AOA. There's one line item in the Clean Water Board's annual recommended budget that flows through the agency administration for clean water. I'm blanking on the name. It's when you set up a stormwater utility, a municipal stormwater utility, their incentive payments. That's come through anyway. So that's the small sliver. ISF is largely DHR ISF for the racial equity positions I mentioned, and the insurance, the workers' comp, general liability, and all other insurances. And then IDT is primarily the recovery office of the Doug Farnham's shop. They they can fund it traditional through being behind the sort of reimbursement based on the need for their.
And is that, that'll always, I assume it'll always be around. Or like if, once we ever get through all the FEMA work, if that ever happens.
Yeah.
Is it another disaster? Or is the idea that would just get it ready, or would it be?
I think they would even be the first to admit, Mr. Chair, we all wish we lived in a world where there was no recovery office, right? That was a necessary function. We've every year kind of had the conversation and assessed. I think what I can say at this point is there's certainly a need now, and there's a need in the foreseeable future. Any other questions from committee members before I move to the next slide? Okay. So, I can figure out how. So in terms of what's changing, this year in FY27, in the secretary's office, that first step ID, the only really significant happenings are we are removing one limited service position from the recovery office. That was a financial manager position. To your point, Mr. Chair, just the nature of the work, there was a lot happening immediately in the aftermath. There's sort of downsizing. There are still 3 positions there in the recovery office. That limited service position was, I think, tied to ARPA funds that were set to run out. So it was a planned wind down. In the Office of Racial Equity,
Can you remind us about the Clean Water Fund, where that money comes from?
oh, sure. Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. I skipped that. So the Clean Water Fund is a special fund that has 3 different sources into it. It's populated by the smallest component is abandoned bottle deposits. So when you go in and you don't reclaim your sheets, yes, Senator. And that is a couple $1 billion every year. But the most significant sources are 6% of the Meals and Rooms tax that's directed to Clean Water Fund. And then there is a surcharge on property transfer tax. So in addition to property transfer tax, there's a small amount folks pay, and that goes in. And so the Clean Water Fund annually, as long as I've been here, has been between 20, and I think now it's maybe up to like at least $3 million a year. Not to be confused with the Clean Water Budget, which is a larger document that consists of both clean water spending and capital spending. And that Clean Water Budget is developed and refined through public input based on a statutorily governed process. There's this independent Clean Water Board made up of some state representatives, but also folks from across the state. They come up annually with their proposed budget recommendations. As long as I've been here, those have been adopted exactly in the governor's recommended budget.
And they also recommend when there's an increase to the base, which I assume they do just because receipts are up from those funding sources.
So a good point of clarification, Mr. Chair, this 125 is actually a decrease from last year, which was $730,000. That was not for just stormwater utility payments, but there was the board recommended setting up like a one-time reserve to potentially leverage some known about, but not exactly understood federal opportunities. And so that got stuck in anyway last year. So this actually, if you look at the attachment B, shows it's a significant down, but it's just returning to the baseline amount of payments for stormwater utilities. Those, by the way, are, I think, $25,000 a year for 4 or maybe 5 years per municipality that sets up a stormwater utility. It was kind of an incentive payment developed by the legislature, I think, in Act something 2015, whatever the big Clean Water Act was, and they set up the board. In the Office of Racial Equity, there's also the removal of one limited service position. That was a PDG data analyst. PDG, I should know, stands for something development grant, I think.
I think it's preschool.
Preschool development grant, thanks, Ugly. And that was a sort of time-bound funding opportunity through the Agency of Human Services for the primary recipients of this preschool development grant. but there was a position associated with that lived in the Office of Racial Equity. That body of work has come to its natural conclusion. So
It's nice to see that even you can't get all the applause, right?
I just asked somebody, I was talking to Nolan yesterday, and asked if they had by any chance like an acronym primer for something else we're doing together.
Everybody has,
For any AI can help us with that.
they'll create more for us.
That's right. So that's really the only action in the Office of Racial Equity. The Financial Services Division, been 10 staff. There are 10 staff again this year. Their increases, again, they're entirely funded by interdepartmental transfers. You'll just see salary and benefits increases for the most part there. Office of Risk Management, what we call the non-demand, right, side of the budget, that is the kind of administrative expenses of the staff and their benefits. That's pretty sleepy. There's not a lot of, again, there's a couple staff, their salaries and benefits are going up like everybody else. The more interesting, no shots fired at those staff, but just like the more significant financial action in the Office of Risk Management has to do with the three internal service funds that they manage. The workers' compensation fund, I mentioned, the general audit and liability fund, and all other insurance, which is an aggregate of a whole bunch of different things. And certain departments and agencies have their own policies depending on the nature of the programs that they run. And so those all kind of funnel into that catch-all. And as I mentioned, those depend, we self-manage those funds. So depending on how much, with the help of an actuary, they make an actuarial projection based on recent loss experience, and then we set I put premium in quotes, but because it's technically not really that, but an amount that we charge out across state government to departments based on their actual usage in prior years. So this committee will see those line items buried in attachment Bs from every other agency. At a high level, workers' comp went up this year by about 13.4%. Again, primarily driven by claims experience. It's not unusual to have some volatility in these funds. It's really has to do with the market. I've been shocked actually personally to see it's sometimes counterintuitive, like the year after the 2023 floods, our flood insurance went down significantly, which I was told was more a function of the fact that the market had gotten a lot more competitive and there were more people offering flood insurance, so we were able to get a better rate. And of course, a humble reminder that we in our little corner of the career, small part of the overall rate. So this year, the workers' comp is up primarily based on claims experience. General auto and liability is also up from FY26 by just about 5%. And then all other insurances are down about 1.4 million. Again, that's, I'd say not out of the realm of experience based on volatility or everything goes into calculating the rates. I included a little chart here for anybody that wants to do a deep dive. The workers' compensation, general liability and auto liability, and the all other insurances fund balances. Because in the past, sometimes those have carried a deficit. You know, everybody in this room, and we want to make sure that our special funds aren't in red, and especially our internal service funds. So on the rightmost column, you can see the fund balance at the close of FY24. In the middle column, you have the fund balance as of the close of FY25. In all cases, we've made some progress. The general liability and auto liability are pretty high fund balance, but that has primarily to do with the timing of a particular receipt into the fund that just happened right before the close of the fiscal year. Workers' comp is the only one currently in deficit. It's in deficit less than it has been in past. If folks look back at the history, we've been sort of inching back towards black, and that's as intended. We've been amortizing basically the deficit based on our rate setting. So I'll pause. That's pretty much everything that's happening in the base. Any questions from senators on that?
110K to ideal.
Yeah, so
That's a base change.
that's
That's
I
not
guess-
a negative amount. That's just a hyphen.
that is not a negative, that is just Iceland. And yes, that would be, I think that's a one-time, Senator, that's not.
Oh, it says one time, I should.
So jumping to that, last year, the governor's requested $220,000 for 2 years of ideal Vermont funding. This is a program that they work with municipalities and municipal leadership who are interested in focusing. And again, the acronyms defeating diversity, equity, and something leadership.
Inclusion, diversity, equity, action, leadership.
There you go. So this is a program that has been running for several years. It's been one-time funded. We asked for 2 years of funding. In the final bill that was passed, it was just a single year provided. And so this is the cost of a single year.
Senator Watson, did you?
Excuse me, AOI.
All other insurance.
Oh, of course, okay.
So if senators don't have any other questions, there's the attachment fees, there's our performance reporting data, there are some new, I think, pretty interesting and illustrative charts requested by this body and your House counterparts this year, major object comparisons, and all kinds of other information in this 73-page packet. But I'm always sensitive to the committee's time and appetite for detail, and knowing that you all dive in and follow up and pick any questions. I'll stop there. I guess that's sort of the end of what I've had planned.
The question about how MTAP is going, and is there more money for that, or are you just spending out the money that we put in before?
Yeah, so ultimately, Mr. Chair, I think Doug Barnum would be the best person to speak at a really granular level. My understanding is it's been going well. I think we're spending down money that's.
So we just like put $2 million into it or something, or
Yeah,
$100,000.
I wouldn't trust my numbers quote of public. I'm remembering a $3 million projection 3 years ago. I think we've been spending that down. That went out to a variety of partners, RPCs, the Council on Rural Development got some funding to help work with municipalities. What I hear is that it's been largely successful and it was a good effort. I think it was sort of originally targeted as an ARPA assistance program, and it grew a little bit based on other federal funding sources flowing into the state. That's, I guess, about the extent of mine.
But somewhere in the 73 pages would be why you're spending this year for that program.
That would be a one-time appropriation, so it would be reflected. If it was a general fund appropriation, be reflected in our remaining one-time balance that is going to show up in the carry forward report. But if it's something you're particularly,
I just wonder kind of where we were spending that $3 million.
Yeah, I wouldn't trust my report at this point. You just have to follow up.
And the other thing I've been thinking about AOA recently is the return to office.
Heard of it.
The small extra work added to your office. I don't know. How is that going now? Still, really, your office's responsibility to kind of shepherd that through, right?
Yeah, so, well, I guess I'll start off, Mr. Chair, just by saying, as the committee, I think, is aware, the return to office policy is currently under litigation and working its way through the judicial system. So it's sort of it is our longstanding policy not to comment in depth on active litigation. So there's sort of a limit to what I can say. To your question, yeah, it was a significant body of work for our office. It was another thing that we spent and continues to be, frankly, as we do our best to navigate a change.
The review, the panel that's reviewing whatever we call them, dispensations from the rule, that's within AOA. Well,
The panel reviewing, sorry.
I call them dispensations, but I think we're calling them something else like a flexible work arrangement.
Oh.
Somebody that's not following the 3 days of.
Yeah, like the exceptions.
Yeah.
And there's a whole reasonable accommodations process that if there's a medical reason, those are funneled through DHR. That process exists prior to any of this. And then there's an exceptions process, but yeah, that occurs within AOA.
Okay, I don't have any other questions. Anybody else? We will diligently read all
Expect them.
rows of the 73 pages.
Yes, well, it's a lot of work does go into compiling these. And really appreciate the team that does.
Yes,
This committee's interest and attention.
and if we see anything, we have questions on, we know how to get them.
Or find us.
Right.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, Keith. Appreciate that.
Definitely. Oh, that's our last time.
Why not?